of wine, then that means that you are supporting the industry at this challenging time, and I'm going to join you in that. So, time to kick off. Hello, Pierre, and welcome.
Hi, Anna. Thank you very much for setting the scene and in terms of the format of this evening. I don't think it's going to be very difficult to persuade the panel and certainly the participants, most of which will be members of the Wine Society, to enjoy what is a fantastic product that we're all involved in, a product that is designed to give pleasure. And I think in this year of all years, that has really shone through as what makes wine such a special thing. And tonight's event, for that reason, is going to be really quite unique, and it's really designed to put growers right at the heart of the event, because 2020 is a year that I think none of us will forget. It's touched all of us, and in wine it of course has brought, as it has in other industries and other communities, quite extraordinary challenges, and particularly challenges to growers. And I think it'd be fair to say that the growers who have felt the effects most acutely have been and continue to be small to medium-sized producers. And in other words, that means many of the society's suppliers. In normal circumstances, society buyers spend, I think, probably more time in vineyards, visiting regions and meeting growers in person, probably more than any other UK wine merchant. And this human element, I do believe, makes the society stand out in the wine trade. And during difficult times, such as 2020, it's those difficult times that relationships can really show their strength. And just to give a bit of context, really, as the crisis unfolded, and the pandemic spread and lockdowns began, the buying team quickly recognized that actually the situation and the challenge was quite different for different growers. It wasn't affecting growers in the same way. And we thought long and hard about, what is it that we can do to help? What role does the Wine Society play? We recognized that we wouldn't be able to help every single one of our suppliers, but we could certainly help our best loved growers. Best loved, in other words, growers that members know very well, that not only produce delicious wines year in, year out, but just go that extra mile, that attend our events, add a bit of value to our members' experience with their wines. So we posed a simple question. Once we pulled together this sort of a list of top growers, we simply asked, what can we do to help? And the result of that is something that we've called Backing Our Best Growers. It's an absolute privilege that this evening we're joined by three of them from all corners of the globe. Grati in Italy, from the Cape, South Africa, Kanonkop, and Pedroncelli from the US. Each one a family producer, each one with stories that are really compelling stories, inspiring stories, and really quite incredible stories of resilience. And that's really the purpose of this evening. What we're going to do is we're going to kick off the evening with a very short introduction by each of the growers, which I'll be introducing. Following that introduction, we and I will set some questions to the growers just about sort of where the impact and how the impact was felt throughout the sort of wine producing cycle. So to kick off, first up is a family producer based in Sonoma County in California, Pedroncelli, who have been in the business of making wine for many, many years. A producer that the Wine Society started working with, I think, about 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm absolutely delighted that third generation, Julie Pedroncelli, is joining us directly right now. She's on the screen from the US, and I'm going to hand over to Julie to give an overview of Pedroncelli. Welcome, Julie.
Oh, thank you. This is such a wonderful opportunity just to hear from friends in Italy and South Africa as well. And we'll share all of our stories about the pandemic, but I'll give you a little bit of background about Pedroncelli. My grandparents, immigrants to the US in the early 1900s, met and married in California. Started a family, and in 1927 they came to a little spot outside of the town of Geyserville, and they purchased a property that was in the middle of Prohibition, so no wine was being made, but 25 acres of vineyard were growing, and they were able to sell the grapes to the head of households who could make their wine, their allotted wine. And then once Prohibition ended in 1933, they began the now a 4-generation family business. We are in Dry Creek Valley in the northwest corner of Sonoma County. If you were to visit California, or if you have, we are 60 miles north of the Golden Gate Bridge. And as you can see the photo there, this is 3 of the generations. My father in the middle, my sisters and I, my nephew Mitch in the front, of course, my mother and my aunt in the front as well, and then brothers-in-law and cousins. And all of us work together to bring you the very best of what we have from our little corner of the world. We are sustainably farmed. To give you an idea, we farm 40 hectares or so, and we make, I think it's about 45,000 liters of wine. So we're a good-sized winery, but we are wonderfully located in Dry Creek Valley, where our flagship grapes are Zinfandel and Cabernet Sauvignon. But we make 20 wines. Some of them are blends, but most of them are single varietals. And we have plans on maintaining the family business going forward. The members of the 5th generation are a little too young, 12 and under, to know where they'll be, but most of them have spent time in the vineyard with us, either tasting the grapes or walking through the vineyard with their grandfather, who is our vineyard manager, for instance. And we just know that we will go forward with being good stewards of our land and offering the very best quality from our little corner of the world. So that's Pedroncelli for now. There. And there's our Zinfandel vineyards. So now you get a shot of the fall and how beautiful it can be in our little corner of Dry Creek Valley.
That's stunning. Thank you. Thank you, Julie. We're now going to zoom over to Europe, specifically to Tuscany, Italy, and the western side of the Rufina Valley in the region of Chianti. 5 generations of the Grati family have been at the helm at Grati, and tonight we are joined by Gualberto, who with his sister runs this brilliant estate, and an estate that supplies the society with a number of wines, including the society's own label, Chianti. Gualberto, welcome from the UK. I guess you're probably in the middle of harvest, or probably quite a busy time for you at the moment.
Thank you very much, Pierre. It's a pleasure to have been here. And it's, yes, we are in the middle of the harvest time. It's a busy time, but we are very happy to participate at this event. As you told me, I'm the 5th generation in the Grati family that is running a wine and olive oil business since the mid of the 19th century. So we are settled in Rufina. We are settled in Rufina. We have 140 hectares of vineyards and also 13,000 olive trees. So we have both the productions that are very important in Tuscany, because Tuscany has usually agriculture doesn't mean just wine, but means also a lot of other products like olive oil as well. So we are very involved in this. The zone of Rufina, where we are settled, is Rufina, so just by Florence, just 15 kilometers from Florence, on east side. We are in a zone that goes from north to south in a valley. So there is a north wind coming, and this is Villa di Vetrice. So we have actually three estates: Grati, Villa di Vetrice, and Borgo Pronatelli. And Borgo Pronatelli is the organic estate that we have. And so we have this particular position in Tuscany, so a valley that goes from north to south with the north wind coming through the valley. They make the weather very unique for the grape and for the ripeness of the grape, because we have a cooler climate, low temperature during the night, and high temperature during the day. So we have this year, last week, a difference of 26 Celsius degrees from night to day. It was very good for the ripeness of the grape. And this characteristic gives to the wine a big chance to, this is the mixed cultivation of olive trees and vines in Pronatelli. That is the organic, the organic estate that we have. And so these characteristics of the grapes and the weather, and also the types of terroir that we have, make wines with a high acidity that are on the side of the elegant wines. We have elegant wines, not very powerful, and it is important because they have a chance to last for a very long time. For instance, this is a wine that Wine Society took. It's 1999, and it is still a very good wine. But, we usually have many different years and many different vintages, because the wines from Rufina last for a long time. Also, we have an important project that started many years ago with the University of Florence about some old varietals of the zone of Rufina. So we have found about 80 different varieties in Rufina zone, and we have started to evaluate some of them. And one of them is Canaiolo Bianco. I'm sorry I show you another bottle, but this is the Canaiolo Bianco wine. Thank you. And you used to take, you had, the Wine Society had it for a while. So it is a long time that we work with the Wine Society, and we are very happy to be here and to participate in this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gualberto.
Thank you.
Right, let's head over now to South Africa, to the Cape, a country that was in the middle of harvest at the beginning of the pandemic. Kanonkop in Stellenbosch, a leading South African estate. Many members will know, and if they don't know, they should know, that Kanonkop are the masters of the Pinotage grape, for which they are probably most famous. Family-owned estate in the 4th generation, and now in the hands of brothers Paul and Johan Krieger. And I'm delighted that Johan is here with us this evening. Welcome, Johan.
Thank you, Pierre, and welcome to all the Wine Society club members. It's nice to have a chat tonight. Right, getting back to Kanonkop. Just to clarify, Kanonkop, the brand name means in English Cannon Hill. In the 17th and in the 18th century, that is all our employees. The full catastrophe. But the brand name Kanonkop means Cannon Hill in English. There's a hillock, part of a massive mountain behind our property, where in the 17th and 18th century, there was a cannon on there. And from there, you could see straight into Cape Town Harbor. So whenever a ship came into the harbor, they fired this cannon, not to start a war. It acted as a signal cannon. And all the farmers in the region heard the shot And then they knew they could go and trade with meat and vegetables and obviously wine as well. So Kanonkop, Cannon Hill, Signal Cannon. The property, as Pierre has said, 4th generation. In my younger days, I was a lawyer, qualified and so forth. And then suddenly after practicing, I realized I'm too honest to become a professional lawyer. So I bailed out and I'm in the wine business, in the family business. That is a picture of all our vineyards. We have 100 vineyards of vines on Kanonkop. The orange portion there, that is basically planted with pinotage for specific reasons, and that is slightly higher. That is on a hill, and then the other areas are primarily planted with Cabernet Sauvignon, and then a little bit of Cabernet Franc and Merlot. So a very focused approach towards business. We farm 90% of our vineyards are either pinotage or Cabernet Sauvignon, and then we have a little bit of Cabernet Franc and Merlot, which we use only for blending purposes. Yeah, that's it. We produce on Kanonkop estate approximately about 600 tons of grapes. And then we also purchase some grapes from growers in the Stellenbosch region to the tune of about 1,900 tons, and that goes into our cadet range. So all in all, a very much of a focused approach. 2 ranges, the Kanonkop Estate range and the cadet range. All red wines. I can also add that when I joined the property, we had about 15 varietals, and then we sat down and we had a good look at our terroir and our history. That was in 1981. And then we decided Kanonkop will become a red wine property, and we will produce Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinotage and other vintages which we could blend in with these 2 varietals. So a very focused approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. So the first area I'd like us to chat about is, I think let's start with I suppose, the first stage of the winemaking or the wine approach, and that starts in the vineyard and in the winery. Julie, would you give us an indication of, what sort of impact has the pandemic had on that sort of production element of your business?
Yes. Well, the pandemic in California, with the sheltering in place, began in mid-March, about the time that our vineyards were going into bud break. So literally, this vintage 2020 started at about the same time as the pandemic. The good news, as we were told everybody needed to shelter in place, is that the winery and vineyards are considered essential. And so agriculture was allowed to carry on. We were able to continue with work in the vineyards. No one on either side of our staff, the winemaking or the vineyard, or even the sales and marketing, nobody was furloughed. We were able to utilize everybody. So that was very fortunate for us. And so as we went along during the pandemic and approached harvest, just a few guidelines are required. The distancing has been with us, the sanitizing, everything. I mean, I like to say wineries, we're already sanitized really well. So I guess we just did a better job at it, making sure everybody was keeping safe and healthy as they work together. Although 6 bottles apart, as we like to say. So then as we approached harvest, a few other guidelines came into place. But overall, we were very fortunate that the state of California and the county of Sonoma allowed us to do our jobs. Bottling carried on, for instance. as we led up to harvest, and other very important parts of what we do here at the winery. And of course, once harvest rolled around, it slowed things down a bit. We have to take temperatures and make sure everybody is healthy when they begin the workday. And of course, the distancing as people pick, if you can imagine, most 95% of our vineyard is hand-picked because most of it is up on the hillsides. So maintaining distance, wearing an N95 mask, all of this was required of our vineyard crew. And so in a way it did slow things down, which meant, of course, to the bottom line, they weren't able to pick as many buckets per day, but still they were able to carry on. So that's the report from my part of the world.
That's good news. And Julie, I have to ask, because it's you know, we're hearing and have heard about it in the UK.
Yes.
You know, you had a double whammy this year with the the terrible fires. What's the situation there? I mean, that, I guess you've got the potential of smoke tainting the grapes and all the other safety issues around that fires of that magnitude can pose.
I'll speak to that. We actually, I'm looking out the window right now. It's a very clear day. So we did have those challenges, as I like to say. And I'm calling this vintage the wait and see. We harvested right about the beginning, started to harvest right about the beginning. And just so everybody knows, our eye is always on quality. So we either have not been able to take grapes because they've already proven to have smoke taint, and that is a tragedy for our growers. It really hit us all very hard. And other grapes we were able to take in, but everything will have, by the end of all of this, before anything from 2020 is released, it will have been through the tests. Sure. And making sure that quality is carried forward, that we're known for, that we're all known for here in California and the Northwest. But good news is the fires still remain away from us. The ones that were in Sonoma County are contained. Now we just know that they're up in Oregon, and I can't really speak to Oregon right now, but it's in the south part of the state.
Right. And Gualberto, I'm going to come to you next. How in Italy, you know, from a European perspective, the first country really in Europe that the pandemic really, you know, started with. So what was the experience for you and in your area as lockdown started in March of this year?
It was a very unique situation. It was the first time we faced something like that. So it was absolutely unexpected for sure, because we didn't understood very well. We didn't understand very well what happened in China. So it was something unusual. And for us, fortunately, in Tuscany, we had not big problems. And also, what we have faced some strange things, like maybe we could not go away from our town borders. We should stay in the borders of our town, and if we had to go away, the reasons to leave the town where we live should be very important. Should be so. It's we lost our freedom in a sense during lockdown to do many things, and but I would say that we didn't feel very much because we are in the countryside. We live in the vineyards, in the olive trees fields. So it's yes, we faced also very nice change in the climate a little bit, because the air was much better than before. We faced a big increase in the sky was blue as on the mountains. Usually we don't have a very bad weather, very bad situation considering the air and what's going on with the pollution. We are not in a bad area for pollution, but we noticed a big increase in it was very safe, it was very nice weather and air as well. And also in the vineyards, now we are almost back to the normality, because in the vineyards we are harvesting now. We have to follow some procedure to keep people at distance between them. We have to measure the temperature of the person that arrives in the morning. But as that is the only thing that we could say is different. What was very different was the lockdown period from the 9th of March to the 5th of May, so 2 months of lockdown. And it was very strange at the very beginning, because we used to use workers that are from 30 kilometers away from here. They come every day in the morning in van with 9-10 people per van, and then they go back usually. And they for 1 month haven't come because they couldn't come because of the regulation. And so we have started to have some problems in the vineyard, because the people can stay at home and can survive easily, but the vines has their own cycle, so they do not stop and wait for us to be ready for them. So they carry on blooming and so on. So we had to work very hard with our workers from the town. And also it was very nice because this is the nice side of the situation. Because on Saturday and on Sunday, there was nothing to do, so I went to work in the field as well. And there is a person that usually comes every season from Naples. There are 2 of them that come from Naples, and they stopped. One of them arrived before the 9th of March, and so he stayed and he has been stopped in Rufina for 2 months. So on Saturday and on Sunday, he has nothing to do as everyone else. So me and Donato, his name, went around in the fields to work a little bit and to make our own job in the vineyards, finish the pruning. So it was quite nice because, but the situation for people in the cities was quite difficult. Even, of course, even if they were not ill, they have problems because they couldn't go out. They had no free space to go. And it was very difficult. But we feel very lucky. We feel very, very lucky. Yes.
And as you say, the vines know no different. They don't recognise the COVID-19, and they carry on.
Carry on, yes.
Johan, of course, South Africa, Southern Hemisphere, you're 6 months ahead or behind. I think we call it ahead in terms of the season. So for you, March, I guess, is right in the middle of harvest. How did you cope? How did you cope? What were the challenges?
There were various challenges, as everyone experienced all over the world, whether you're an economist or a doctor or a retailer, whatever the case may be. And we had to comply with all those rules. But I think in South Africa's, from our point of view, we had a couple of bizarre regulations that were made by government in terms of the lockdown. The first thing they said is that no wine sales, no alcoholic beverage sales whatsoever. And that was for 3 weeks. It actually extended for 13 weeks, but we can talk about that a bit later. No wine sales. And then they made the bizarre statement of saying, we're not a preferred industry, the wine business. So we had to close our cellars. We had physically to locked down our cellars one evening, boom. And there were still grapes hanging, there were juice fermenting in the cellars, and we had to lock it down and stay at home, which is totally bizarre. It's so irrational as this. I'm not going to give my own impression or my own ideas about that. That I can leave for the viewers. But fortunately, we did manage to get in 24 hours time, we managed to get not as an organization that acts on behalf of the wine industry. They managed to get a meeting with government. And then they said, okay, you can now open up your cellars and you can now start picking grapes again. So at least after that turmoil, we were allowed to finish our harvest and operate the cellars as normal, with all the red tape involved with that. I think that the more important factor on the longer term within the South African context is that the lockdown in wine sales was kept on for 13 weeks, which is 1/4 of a year. So there's an enormous amount of stock outside. And that reflects directly back to the growers. Kanonkop has got 100 hectares, but we buy from about 20 growers. We buy grapes from them, and they're all in the Stellenbosch region. But we're going to get to a situation where there's going to be stocks in the cellars with next year's crop coming in, and there's not going to be any space. I know the Europeans has played that quite well, where they did manage to get permission or grants to distill wines into alcohol and so forth, etc., etc. In South Africa, we will never get that. So some other way, we'll have to move these surplus stocks out of cellars. And I'm talking about the massive, the bigger growers or the biggest sellers. Because a 13-week lockdown is 1/4 of annual sales lost, and nobody's suddenly going to drink 2 bottles of wine instead of 1 bottle of wine a day. So that in short, irrational decisions that's really picked on the liquor industry, not just the wine industry, on the liquor industry, and that really put us back, put the whole wine industry back. And you know, we're not beer producers. You can't just open the tap and make more beer suddenly. This
Absolutely.
is a 12-month process, and you can't stop it. You have to carry on. So yes, absolutely. That's in short. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you know, and from I suppose from the wine society's perspective, what I was seeing, we buy from all over the world, and through the pandemic, we were for the first couple of weeks, you know, monitoring supply chain really closely, expecting there to be disruption with supply chain, and to be honest, we have had no disruption at all with supply, except South Africa. You know, it was very difficult to actually either get our orders from the wineries to the port in South Africa, and then to get it from port onto the ship, because the government kept changing its mind about whether to allow export of alcohol or not. And so, you know, it was I think it's been really tough for South Africa from that point of view, because COVID, as an importer of wine, the logistical element of handling wine, bringing it in, organizing it in our warehouse, and then distributing it out for home delivery, that element has been pretty much our main focus through this period, and making sure we can get that right, because what we're privileged to have had is a membership who have been at home, who haven't been able to go out to restaurants, certainly at the beginning of lockdown, and were wanting to enjoy a glass or two, and so they were still buying wine from the Wine Society. So, Johan, if you're stuck with stock, this is exactly what this Backing Our Best Growers is about, is for us to say we have a very thirsty market who love all of your wines. And by featuring you in this way in our Backing Our Best, frankly, it means that we're able to sell more volumes of your wine. So we're doing what little bit we can to help.
Just the last point, you know, it sounds like if it's only the wine businesses now in a lockdown and we can't sell anything, but it goes much further. That you have the beer industry was locked out as well, no beer sales whatsoever. So the bottle manufacturers had to lock down their factories, and to start a furnace to start producing bottles again, that takes about a month just to get the thing fired up again. So we're back on track now. Everything is now running smoothly and so forth, but it went much wider than just Kanonkop as a producer. It spread through the whole wine industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan. So I'd like to introduce a new topic now, and I'll stay with you, Johan, which is, and I mentioned it in my introduction, and I think people is such an important, or the human factor is such an important thing in our business, as it is in any business. But I think people that, you know, we talk about terroir, the sense of terroir in wine, and the importance of soil and aspect and climate and grape variety and so on. And absolutely, they are an instrumental part of terroir. But I think one of the elements of terroir that is often not highlighted is the influence of people on the decisions people make. How did the situation impact your people, your community, your teams? You know, closed. Clearly, there are protocols and safety protocols, but are there any stories you can share around that?
Yeah, people are your biggest asset in a company. And some people you had to say, wake up, because we can now go back to the vineyards and we can go back into the cellar. Some others you had to say, just hold back a bit, no knee-jerk actions. So it was, at the end of the day, it was about managing them and bearing in mind that of our approximately 60 employees full-time, about 30 stays on the property. They stay on the property. So it's a family business that we're running, a bigger family than just myself and my brother. I think we've managed it quite well. We haven't to retrench anyone, no salary disruptions yet. Can't tell you what's going to pan out towards the end of the year. But the one thing that I think we did right is from day one, we divided the whole business into 6 different teams, because we didn't know what this was all about, really. We just know you got to stay away from somebody else as far as possible. And all the masks and sanitizing, etc. So that was common cause. But we just divided our people into 6 different teams. And it was the vineyard team, and it was the cellar team, and it was the bottling guys, and it was the logistic guys, and the admin people, and so forth. And nobody was allowed to move on to anyone else's territory. Nobody. You had to stay within your little place. And if you're in the wine cellar, you're in the wine cellar. And then you're not allowed to move into the bottling side. And the vineyard guys had to stay in the vineyard. They couldn't move into the cellar and so forth. And that actually worked quite well. You know, with 60 employees up till now, we've had one case that was tested positive. It was a lady in our laboratory. And that went over quite quickly. But had we had more problems, we would have just closed down that one section for 2 days, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We've managed to get out of the employee people component. We've managed it pretty well, I would think. Yeah.
Excellent. And Gualberto, what was your experience?
our experience with the situation is quite good actually, because all in our families, no one was involved in the with the virus, and also our employees have been very safe all the time, and we just kept we just started at the very beginning to keep anyone and keep all the procedure to solve the problems. And we had also some controls from the government, because they were checking in the cellars if we were working properly according with the new regulation of keeping the people the right distance. If they have they have to use the masks, they have to have it. So for us, at the very beginning, it was a little difficult to understand that is a new thing, because many people and many professional guys the from hospitals, and they were saying that could be very easy, could be not, and someone else was saying that is a completely different thing. So even the people in our cellar, in our farm, were not. They didn't like to use at the very beginning this procedure. So, so it was something that was because it's not easy to work with a mask, because you cannot breathe easily. So at the very beginning, they didn't understand if it was necessary or not. At the end, it was compulsory. So we told them it was difficult to avoid to do that. If they wouldn't do, we should close the cellar, because the sector, the agriculture sector, and that gives the primary products could be open when all the other sectors were closed. So we could be open, but we have to be very precise in following all the procedures that were done. And actually, it has been quite bad, because one group of people that used to come to us, to our cellars from Fogibonzi, that is 30 kilometers away from here, they have stopped by the police, and they got a ticket, because there are maybe one person more than expected, and they should keep the window open when they are in the cars. So at the end, they got the ticket, and it was it is not good at all. We have to face these difficult things, but fortunately, it is not a matter of life, because no one of us has faced a bad situation because of the COVID inside our estate, inside our farm. Yeah.
Thank you, Gualberto. Julie, I know you mentioned that fortunately you didn't have to furlough anyone. I think what I'd like to do is actually just move on to another theme which Johan had mentioned, which is sort of the impact on the commercial element, on sales. And also actually beforehand, before you answer that, can I just say respect, because I saw you take a nice sip of red wine, and it just suddenly occurred to me, it's not even midday in California.
I want you to join.
Yes, tell us how the sales were impacted.
Is this for Johan or me?
For you, sorry, for you, Julie. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right. So, well, first of all, the on-trade. we lost 40% of our sales when the restaurants were closed and still remained closed for the most part. There's a little bit of outdoor dining, but we have not recovered that. The tasting room, our cellar door to the public was closed for quite some time. We were able to open back up, but we had many guidelines, so we could not allow that many people in. Then the pandemic surged, or the virus count surged in the county, and they closed it all off except for outdoor tasting. Then we're in the middle of summer and it's hot. We had the smoke. We have had quite a few challenges, but the good news is people are drinking at home. People are searching out wines, and we sell wine to most of the states here in the United States directly. There's a few that we can't, but overall, that part of our sales has grown to, I think, grew by 30%. So we had a bit of a balance. But we also had challenges even with an order that was supposed to, it was in for Quebec. And in June, they canceled the order because we weren't able to ship. And they actually ended up 2 months later reestablishing the order. And so we have started shipping back to Canada. But there were those challenges, which we all, have gone through. And it is just it's overcoming them and finding new avenues. But we'll talk about that in a bit too.
Absolutely. Well, every challenge opens an opportunity at the end of the day. And Gualberto, in terms of, I'm going to move on to another theme, which is just visitors, which Julie, you mentioned, cellar door visitors. With people not being able to travel, how did that impact your place in Tuscany?
We had the very beginning there was a problem, but during lockdown we have seen that many people from our town came in the cellar and bought our wines. So it means that it has happened something a little weird, because people started to say that the supermarkets or other places were places that are not very safe, because so many people were going there. So it was an easy place to take the virus. So at the end, they changed their habits very much. So they started again to buy products from small shops where because fortunately we have we still have many tiny shops owned by private people. They still have things, elementary things, wines and so on. And so in that way, also many people came to our cellar, because we have a little tiny shop of our products, and they bought lots of wine actually, because many people are saying that the consumption of wine at home has increased very much. And so we can see that about Rufina, because we have received many people. And so it was at the end, during lockdown, we have sold more wine than before, than what happened in the month before. For just speaking about the tiny shop that we have in our cellar. And after that, when lockdown finished, tourists came a little bit, but not many. And I have noticed that all of them, even the people from abroad, came with their own car. So no one has arrived with Italian, I would say, no British people with an Italian car, but British people maybe with an English car. So it means that no one wanted to take airplane.
Yeah.
So it was a different, very different situation. And actually, I would say that tourists has come in very less. I would say,
Yeah.
not as before, not as last year. So about the people that came, we are very happy with the locals, but unfortunately we lost all the touristic season.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Johan, you have a fantastic cellar door visitor sort of experience at your place, and I've seen messages popping up here from participants who have been tuning in saying, you know, I've been to Kanonkop and had a wonderful time there. What was the impact for you guys? I guess you rely on that as quite an important part of what Kanonkop does and offers its fans as such.
It was quite dramatic. You know, I'll try to be short on this, but in the first instance, as I've said earlier, we had a 13-week ban of any alcoholic beverage sales in South Africa. That applies to all the wineries as well. So 13 weeks were gone. Obviously, no foreign tourists, not yet. When the liquor ban were lifted towards the end of August, retailers, the likes of in the UK, the Tesco's and the Sainsbury's and the Waitroses and so forth, in South Africa, they currently only allowed to sell wine Mondays to Thursday. That's it. Mondays to Thursday.
Sorry, can I interrupt? What's the thinking behind Monday to Thursday, to avoid the weekend? Because people drink more on the weekend, or?
Probably. But all over the world, people drink a little bit more over the weekend. But that is the reality. Irrational, bizarre rulings that's been made by government. That we can discuss one day over a personal glass of wine, which is quite bizarre. But they have now told us that as from next week, we are now allowed to sell not wine from Mondays to Thursdays, but from Mondays to Fridays. So our cellar doors, well, we got one day more. So thank you very much. But we were for 13 weeks, no visitors. And the tourism component to South Africa is enormous within our winelands. And I'm not talking about on behalf of the whole wine industry. It's enormous. It's massive. And everyone's got massive good restaurants and tourism facilities and so forth. That is, for the time being, that is gone. That is dead. They said last night that they will allow foreign travelers coming into South Africa as from the 1st of October. But that will take about 3 months, 4 months to kickstart that. It's not a thing that you can just put on or put off. So foreign tourist visitors are dead, arguably for about 12 months, at least 12 months. Local visitors, they're a little bit scared of traveling, or they've been blocked in so much that it seems to me everyone now wants to get out. And we had a lot of visitors today, as a matter of fact, but it's Thursday. So they have to buy today, you know. So yeah, it wasn't good. The impact is going to be quite negative on the whole South African industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So yeah, times is going to be tough. But
times are going to be tough. But let's, I mean, looking forward, you know, every crisis brings opportunity, and the opportunity to change and to reset and so on. So yeah, and you know, what's your vision, having been through you know, difficult year? Things are, I suppose, stabilizing in the sense of we are ready for potentially a second wave or not. What's your what are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, I've got a different expression of what you've just mentioned, Pierre, and I said, if there's a negative, there's got to be a positive. And one now has to identify the positives going forward. And I think number one, as I said earlier, no knee jerks. I sometimes, as an older guy, gets upset about people that's talking about the new norm and the new this and the new that. This is nothing new. You know, digital sales, which is on the cards, obviously, and which we're doing quite well currently, that was happening long time ago already. So it's a matter of just taking stock and do proper environmental scans. What's happening in the UK, what's happening in the US, where we export to, what's happening in South Africa, and where are there certain opportunities to unlock. And the opportunities are there. If you've got a good product at a good price, with a credible brand, there are, to my mind, there are certain opportunities. And this is arguably, and I can say this now directly, this is where companies like the Wine Society plays a major role. There's no contact, there's nothing this, but it goes about value for money on the one side and a credible brand on the other side. Whether you sell a bottle of wine for 10 quid or for 100 quid, it's got to be value for money. And we just got to just rescan yourself without going into all these jitters. I don't believe that. Just relax, take stock, no knee jerks, no new norms and this and that and whatever, and carry on. Manage what you can manage, but there are now major opportunities outside there. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. I think that's a very positive and philosophical statement, and worth contextualizing, because it's not like, you know, growing grapes isn't easy. In a normal year, there are challenges after challenges because Mother Nature is particularly unpredictable. And all three of you have had generation after generation dealing with all sorts of challenges. Gualberto, what are your plans for the future?
Yes, we have faced this very difficult situation, and we have seen what happened around the world with our clients, with our importers in USA, Japan, Asia, and it was very. We have noticed that there is a way of thinking that maybe should change a little bit, because, for instance, we have some importers that one in particular in New York have asked to us to send us back the wine we took on January, because he could not sell any bottle at all. So the idea is, we spoke with many people, with other producers. We try to understand what's going on with this situation. We try to understand what's going on in the markets, in the production of the wine. And as we have to carry on the production the same way that we have done as before, maybe we should consider more in the production area to focus a little bit more on local people, to find maybe a local person that come and work for us instead of using groups of people from outside. But about the market and the issue to go further and to solve the situation, I think that we have seen that unfortunately, in a situation like this, the main object of our market, of our wines, was the restaurants market. The Horeca was completely disappointed and should closed. Almost all of them has closed. So the restaurant owner had big problems. So for us, we talked with many of our importers that has just restaurants as clients, and we spoke about the chance to change their view and look at also other ways to sell the wine and to find a solution for that. And a big example, a great example of is the Wine Society, because with the private people that you are working with, we have seen that you are close for three weeks, I think, but you carried on working very hard. And the idea is we appreciate very much your concern about the employees that you have and in order to keep them safe. But we understood also that the market that you are facing is a market that is still alive and very demanding for wine. So it is a great example that I have given to other importers that we have around the world, because we have to consider that when very hard situation happens, maybe you have to have different ways to reach the consumers.
Yeah.
So maybe it's we are trying to develop with our customer. It's not just us. We want to involve a change in all our community, because I believe to be a part of a community where we have supplier, we have consumers, we have people that we want to work with because we have worked with them for more than 40 years, more than 50 years. So it is important to go further together with everyone. Yes.
Thank you. And finally, Julie, to the future.
Well, I have to agree with both Johan and Gualberto. We've seen 93 years of this, so we've had generations of looking at the ups and downs of the wine business, and dealing with the vagaries of nature, as Mother Nature has given us all kinds of things. But looking forward, flexibility is pretty much what our key word is here, and is being flexible enough to find different avenues. We never took reservations until this point, and we will maintain those. It'll enhance the future experiences of people who will come to visit us in our tasting room, for instance. We also have picked up that old-fashioned gadget, the phone, and started talking to people, our wine club members and other people who have ordered, and getting, we always get their phone number. It's an old, what I consider an old-fashioned way, but we're using that to stay in touch, to understand what's going on with people, and of course, still getting the orders and things like that. So those little changes will go forward and go far for us. And also, of course, trying to come up with ways with dealing with our trade partners for our accounts that are far and wide that we cannot get to right now. And so we've actually used virtual events for in-store tastings, for instance, and everybody buys the wine, yay, and then we get to talk about it to them via this exact same format. And so all of that, just going forward, is just being flexible enough, because if you aren't, you can break. And I think that's the key here, is that none of us will break because we've been flexible enough to change the way we do things.
Exactly. Change. Thank you very much. So we have had, I've seen and not been able to keep track of all sorts of comments popping up on the screen. We'll move to some questions now. And Anna, how are we doing? What have we got?
We're doing very well, thank you, Pierre. I'd just like to mention a couple of things that I was really moved and surprised by, actually. Johan, in particular, the idea of closing bottling furnaces was completely foreign to me. I hadn't even considered that. So, we as the Wine Society think of our own supply chain, and then actually your supply chain has been so affected, and it had never crossed my mind. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. Gualberto, I love the idea that you had 2 lodgers from Naples
Yeah.
who came to stay with you and never left and
Yes,
couldn't
yeah,
leave.
yeah.
So a lovely weekend workforce. And then lastly, Julie, I think your stoicism and positivity is actually incredibly inspiring. And I love the idea that flexibility will save the day in the end. I think that's a lovely way to think about things, and actually a bit of a kind of a life choice actually that we should maybe all live by. But on to members' questions, because we have had a few. I'm hoping it might be possible that Susie Charles rather could ask her own question. Susie, if you've been able to be unmuted.
Yes, I have. Can you hear me?
We certainly can. Good evening, Susie.
Hi. Yeah, no, it was the question I was asking was that when I was out in South Africa, because I was out there for 3.5 weeks, but in the end I stayed 10 because of lockdown, and I got back on 23rd of May instead of the 2nd of April. But it was lovely. I stayed at my house, so it was fabulous. But the wine producers in the Himalayan Valley, which is close to where my house is, they were worried that they were losing their slots, say in countries that they supplied, like Britain, Europe, whatever, and that they were worried that if those slots disappeared, they wouldn't be able to make them up. Have you been able to make them up?
I can't speak on behalf of all the South African producers, but if you have a major slot with some of the bigger retailers and so forth, and you can't supply, they basically take you off the shelf and they replace you with a competitive product. And you know, but this is now getting back to trying to manage that, because it's a major problem. So we couldn't supply certain guys in Europe and in the UK. And the first thing that we did, Deidre, my marketing manager, was to source wines, the same wine that was in stock in some other countries, and trying to get those together to be able to supply retailer X in country Y.
Excellent idea.
And she really worked on it. And this was in the heavy lockdown, 5-level lockdown. So we were actually working, and it's as I said, you got to manage this. And so I would assume that some producers lost some listings, but hopefully not too many. I can't answer the question as such, but it was a matter of managing it. But currently, everything is now, to a lesser extent, is back to normal. Even our harbors, which Piers talked about, there were a big COVID outbreak on the harbors, these machines that's loading the containers and so forth. So they were working at about 50% capacity, but now they're all back. So from a logistical point of view, I think things are ticking over quite well.
Thank you, Johan. It's a good question.
That was a fantastic question. Absolutely. Thank you. This question, I think probably, Pierre, if you maybe might have an insight into it. It's from Peter Cousins. But I think probably what's worth doing is asking everyone what their own experience has been. Peter asks, I understand why wine sales into the restaurant train have declined drastically, but it's reported that home wine drinking has increased. It seems that the latter has not offset the former. So in normal times, what is the split between the on and off trade? What's the split between the two markets? And has home drinking countered the restaurant trade at all?
Okay. I know the answer to that, but I can't remember the answer to that. There was some, we obviously at the Wine Society track the market as closely as we can. And off the top of my head, and I'm assuming that we can take your details and come back to you with a better response, because I just can't remember off the top of my head to be precise.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's of interest then maybe to ask each of the guys what their experience has been.
Sure, sure. Beforehand, though, what I will say is that the alcohol consumption in the UK has apparently dropped through lockdown. The areas that have performed best through lockdown, though, have been wine. Spirits have been most affected. Certainly our experience at the Wine Society, and we are a tiny player in the UK market. We're a specialist. Bear in mind that of all the wine sold in the UK, around 75% of it is sold through supermarkets. We operate in that sort of 25% area. Without a doubt, our experience, demand has been exceptionally high from members. And that's a combination of our sort of base membership buying more, and on top of that, members who have not engaged with the Wine Society for several years starting to buy from us again. So we've had a sort of an incremental growth in the number of members that are buying from us. Julie, how in the US, the sort of split between restaurants and sort of on-trade and off-trade sales, how has that impacted for you guys?
Well, we've seen a huge dip just because of the restaurants. Our split between on and off was 60 off and 40 on. So we did end up losing that amount. We have gained a bit back, but it didn't match what we lost in the market. And as we go forward, we'll see that number change again. It just all has to do with how many restaurants will come back as we head into the winter. Outdoor dining, of course, won't be possible. So again, those restaurants will have to be flexible, like we were talking about earlier, in order to, gain sales. We've been encouraging restaurants to, the phrase, "Do you want fries with that?" They should start to ask when people call in for with their orders, "Do you want a bottle of wine with that?" Because they have wine, and it would be a way. We've encouraged, and we actually have a couple in the area who are doing just that. But we were surprised that not that many were. I mean, if you've got the inventory, sell it. Make it part of the meal plan.
I love that.
What about in Italy? I mean, restaurants and bars must be a very important part of, because it's such an important part of your society.
Yes, it is. It has been a tough period, of course, because many of them have closed, and also many of them have not opened again, because some of them should have a big reduction in the number of seats per restaurants, so they couldn't afford the costs to face this situation. And so it is very sad maybe to go around Florence because so many restaurants and so many bars are actually closed now in the center as well. So the situation is dramatic for them, for sure, and many of them have tried to use they want to survive and they find new ways to work. So, for instance, there are some bars that made drinks with for takeaway, like Negroni for takeaway. So we could go and take away some products from them. Also, restaurants tried to move to sort of takeaway situation, but many of them are facing very hard times. They won't open again. Maybe it is very hard. And the supermarkets, about the supermarkets, there is a big difference between the types of supermarkets, because there are discounts supermarkets that work very much, and also the consumption and the sales of wine in there has been increased very much. But some of the higher quality ones has had also reduction of sales of wine, because and that is very bad, because what is sold in the discount, it's very cheap. Is the cost to produce it should be very cheap. So at the end, it's it's a type of wine that many of us cannot produce. So it's just big bottlers can do that, and so at the end, in the market and in the sector, we would see a big increase of power for the big bottlers, the big companies, and so maybe the producer, the growers, has to face costs that cannot be cannot find the right destination now, the right channel. So it is difficult. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Guel. Thank you, Gualberto. I think we'll go next. Oh, do you want to add something, Johan?
Yeah, just quickly, looking at it from a broader perspective, I think it's all about branding and having the right mix within your portfolio. Because I've seen the stats from the UK, which I agree with you said, which is very good stats. I've seen some statistics from the US and from Europe, Benelux and so forth. And it's obviously people are going more home or eating more at home, and obviously now drinking a little bit more because it's a little bit cheaper. They don't have to pay the margins of the restaurants and so forth. To a lesser extent, what people has lost on the on-con side, to a lesser extent, they've gained on the off-con side. People are drinking more wine at home. That's fact. But they're under stress. And they're not going to drink spirits at home as such, So if your strategy and your branding strategy is all in place, you could have ride this out, not comfortably, by no means, but you could have ride it out better if everything is in place. So
absolutely. Thank you, Johan.
Fabulous. Thank you all. Julie, I've got a quick question for you. It's from an anonymous attendee, but they've asked, when planning to mitigate risks, how does this year's events compare with your concerns about other threats? They've given the examples of poor harvest, pest, disease, but obviously you have the added risk of fire. So when you're planning to mitigate risk, how did this compare?
This was quite a challenge overall. And we had to, if I can say this, we had to mitigate on our feet. Because this one came, I mean, the previous fires that came through were always at the end after we were done with harvest. So this one became a surprise. So going forward, as we were talking, things will change. We will mitigate all of this, taking it into consideration for future harvests and things like that. We even had started to mitigate. One way was by getting a generator, because here in the state, the power would, if it's considered a threat, they shut off the power. That could be very detrimental to wines that are fermenting, for instance, and things like that. So we already had some mitigation measures in there because of what we had experienced in previous years. But going forward, yes, again, it's rolling with the punches for the most part. And this one will, like I think I said before, will go down in the books as one of the most challenging. But I think we've met and answered as many of the challenges as we can at this time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, Pierre, we have had a question in the, oh, sorry, Johan, I think you wanted to mention something.
This topic is quite close to my heart because we must realize, and our clients and people that enjoy our wines, I must realize we're part of the agricultural sector. And within agriculture, you get wind damages, you get fire damages, you get drought damages, you get the damn COVID thing. So there's the whole time agriculture, regardless of what commodity you grow, it goes up and it goes down, and it goes up and it goes down. And you got to be ready for the downturns. And when there are upturns, you got to make sure that you have a very strong balance sheet. Your income statement must be ready. You must have sufficient notes under your cushion where you sleep, some coins or whatever the case may be, for the bad for the bad times. So one is going to be prepared for these downturns, because we're going to have what we had a drought 4 years ago. Now we got this, but you got to manage that and make sure, even and it's easier within a family business, to make sure that you've got a strong balance sheet. Then, all things equal, one should be able to ride it out. But you first got to get there, and as I said, manage it. But this is old people's talk, strong balance sheet. But I think specifically within agriculture, wine business, it still applies today, and it will be applicable in 50 years' time. Thank you.
Exactly, Johan. And I think, you know, what you're also hinting at, which is something that is so important to all three of you as family businesses, also to the Wine Society as a business that exists for the benefit of its members. You know, we put our members before profit. The thing that links us all is that we're in this for the long term. It's not short term, quick wins. It's looking really long way into the future, because we have the incredible benefit of being able to look quite far back in the past, and that's, you know, given us the confidence to run our businesses with that long-term view. Anna, what's the next question?
Well, we have a question, Pierre, that I think will probably please you slightly. We've had somebody ask if we could talk about the wines in the offer, and I know that you were keen to share some of the imagery of the offer. I think we're sort of low on time, so if each producer could maybe just have one line about each wine, just to explain what it is and maybe what makes it special. I think we're going to kick off with, here we go. So start backing our best growers. Pierre, I'll let you talk about the offer, and then maybe as each producer's wine comes up, perhaps they could talk about the wines in the offer, and I'll remind them as we go.
Perfect, sure. So Anna, we'll be able to see?
Yeah, we will.
Great,
exactly.
perfect. So the guys will see. So this is a sort of digital version of the campaign that we posted out to members. Most of our members would have received it in the post the weekend, probably over the weekend just gone, and if not yet, we'll be dropping any day. Check it out. Have a look on our website too, because you can also look at this digital version, and there's loads more content there. There are videos from all the other growers, and just worth saying as well that it's not just Julie, Johan, and Gualberto's that we feature here, but we've got growers from all over the world. Each of our buyers, there are 8 of us. You know, we really did pick our top what we call our best growers. Those are the ones that, as I said at the beginning of this evening, don't just make incredibly delicious wine year in, year out, but just go that extra, take those extra steps to do things like this evening and dedicate their time to spending here with members. In the real world, they'll come over. Johan came over from South Africa, I know last year for one of our events. And I think all of you have been involved in some of our events in one way or another. And you just add that value. So, Johan, here's your page on Kanonkop, and we're featuring 2 of your wines.
Yep, the rosé. As I said, we specialize in Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinotage. That is a rosé made from Pinotage for the specific reason that Pinotage has got quite a lot of fruity flavors when it's young. It's made more in a full-bodied style in terms of the Kanonkop style, full-bodied, structured. It's got an alcohol of close to 14%. Quite raspberry, cherry flavors, elegant. But it's a food-driven rosé. It's not a rosé that one should drink on a Sunday evening or Sunday morning next to the pool. It's a food-driven one. Coming down to the Cadet Cape Blend. Cape Blend in South Africa means at least 30% of Pinotage in the blend. That's a blend of Pinotage, Cabernet Sauvignon, and a little bit of Cabernet Franc and Merlot, but primarily Pinotage. Yeah. That is our biggest seller from Kanonkop, full-bodied, oaked for 12 months. Yeah, enjoy.
And sold in a Magnum as well. So there you go. Gualberto.
Yes. Yes. Here we have our Society's Chianti Rufina, yours, Society's Chianti Rufina. It's a blend of Sangiovese, 90%, 7% Canaironero, 20% of Colorino. It is aged for 6 months in oak barrels, big oak barrels, and it is a wine that has a good freshness, and it has also the fruitiness is kept, and it has the chance to last quite long, as all the wines from Rufina, and it is on the elegant side, so the style is as our style is like that. So not very powerful wine, but with easy to drink in the sense, but also has the structure of the Sangiovese and the characteristics of the Sangiovese. And then we have Chianti Rufina Riserva Villa di Vetrice 2015. It is we choose the best vineyards. We select the grapes from the best vineyards exposed to southwest. It is the same blend of varietals, so Sangiovese, Canaironero, and Colorino, so indigenous varieties. And the harvest is done usually at the end of September or the first days of October. It is this year we will do it earlier because for the Riserva wine, because it's an earlier season. It has the freshness, it has the elegance. It is a typical wine from Rufina. So with a traditional style, with the rice smoothness of the wine given by the time in oak, but also from the choice done during the fermentation and also during the aging. So it is a type of wine that represents our Rufina wine. Yes.
Thank you, Gualberto. Julie.
Yes. All right. What's great is you have our winemaking team at the top there. My brother-in-law is in the middle. He's our vineyard manager. Polo Cano on the left is our cellar master, and our winemaker, Montserrat Reese, is on the right. She's actually from Spain and has been with us since the 2007 vintage and became winemaker in 2015. And I I like it because I find our wines very much in an old world style with that California accent. That's the fruit is grown here, of course, and you'll find that throughout. So our Friends Red Blend is that exactly it. It's a blend. You don't have to worry about what's in it. It's on the back label if you do need to know. But it's this great combination of Merlot. So we have a nice base along with some Zinfandel and a little touch of Syrah. And it is just a friendly, approachable bottle of wine you can bring to a friend's house, share with friends, or even if you don't have any friends, it'll be very friendly. So you will enjoy this very easy drinking wine. And it is just very much a hallmark of what we do here, make our wines very approachable. And our Cabernet Sauvignon, this is an estate grown, three vineyards, and it is a combination of our Bordeaux varietals that we grow here. We do all five: Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. And this one has a good slug of Cabernet Sauvignon, of course, for it to be called Cabernet. But Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and a little bit of Petit Verdot and Malbec really help to smooth it out. Our winemaker Vancé says that we make Cabernets that we have a little bit of greenier in it, and it's a great little term because there is that little bit of that herbaceousness that comes through in this Cabernet, and really is that stamp of where the grapes are grown, which is Dry Creek Valley. We're a little bit cooler than some of the other areas in Sonoma County and Napa. We're further closer to the coast, so we have a little bit of cooler weather. And this Cabernet, because it's a blend of all the best that we have, it really gives you something that's not only approachable when you open it tonight, or you can put it in the cellar and age it for a few more years. It will do well in either case. So cheers.
Cheers to you too. Wonderful.
I'd like to apologise, Julie, as well. I've just noticed we've got an old image, so those bottle shots were not correct. So I do apologise, but
Okay.
even better, we had the shots of the people, and that's the most important thing in my eyes.
And yes. When I saw that flash up, I thought, and I've been checking on our live version and the printed version, because I saw that and thought, no, those are not Julie's bottles in that image. That was obviously an internal document, pre-proof document. So thanks for pointing that out, Anna. Don't worry, Julie. We were promoting your wines with the right bottles with the images.
Yes, thank you.
Lovely. I'd like to hand back to Pierre, and apologies to members for overrunning slightly, but I'm sure just like me, you've enjoyed every minute of this, and it's been really pleasurable. So Pierre, I'd just like to hand over to you for a final sign off, but I would like to say my thanks and a cheers to everyone. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's been an amazing event. And actually, you know, we've talked about what changes have been made and so on and so forth. And look, we're sitting here now, all from our parts of the world, engaging with lots of our members. This is then going to go onto YouTube. We wouldn't be doing this if it hadn't been for hadn't been for 2020. And actually, I think this is fantastic. It's quite special, isn't it? Because I think and I often wake up in the morning and say to myself, you know what, if I'd been asked to do a bunch of Zoom events and social media events 6 months ago, I would be going, well, why? No, I'm not sure it's worth it, but it really is worth it. And I think these sorts of events we will be doing we'll be doing these sorts of events forever, actually, to complement the real events when we can get back to normal. But I would just like to thank all three of you for one, your openness, and two, because I believe that you've been able to be open because of the authenticity around what you do, the realness about what you do. You guys have got nothing to hide. The Wine Society has got nothing to hide. We do this for the long term, and thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing those stories. And I hope that sometime soon we'll all be able to share a glass together. So cheers and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. This was a wonderful opportunity. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Good night.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you very much.
Greatly appreciate.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Pierre. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the inputs and thank you for the Wine Society for putting this all together. Great.
Thank you.
Ditto.